Bitcoin is close to becoming worthless.
Let's go. Now, what's the Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's like rat poison.
Yeah. Oh,
The greatest scam in history.
let's get it.
Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Brief, the show where me and Q&A catch up every 2 weeks to talk about Bitcoin, privacy, open source, keeping your Bitcoin secure, and the news and software updates that matter. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who's been supporting Ungovernable Misfits, and a big thank you to Foundation Devices for supporting the show. If you haven't already checked them out, go to foundation.xyz. They make cypherpunk tools for fuckwits, and anyone can use this, even me. If you have any questions or you want to reach out, feel free and I'll be happy to go through things with you. For anything super technical, I'll pass you on to Q. If you want to buy one of these incredible passports, use the code Ungovernable. It will get you a discount and it will let them know that I'm shilling. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to the Cake Wallet team. Not only are they supporting this show, but they're also bringing out some incredible features. For those of you who actually use Bitcoin and actually care about their privacy and security, Cake Wallet make it incredibly simple for you to live outside of the traditional financial system. You can use Cake Pay within the app to buy gift cards for food, petrol, and whatever else you might need day to day. You can use silent payments, and of course, you can use Monero. You can connect both Bitcoin and Monero nodes, use coin control, and this team are constantly innovating, and I'm really excited to be working with them. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me, but check them out at cakewallet.com. Download the APK or start using this today on Mac, Windows, Linux, iPhone, or of course your Android device. Enjoy the show. Good morning, Q.
Hello, sir. How are you doing? Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Well, we've already Happy New Year'd each other, haven't we? Because we spoke on Friday.
We did indeed, yeah. I guess it's a Happy New Year for the brief-only listeners, I guess.
That's true.
Yeah, we did record last Friday with none other than Mr. Guy Swan, covering all things Keat, Pear, Pass, etc. And that ecosystem. That was a fun one to record, something that's been loosely on my radar for years, and it's never really seemed to have gone mainstream yet, but it's good to know that there's still people, big, well-funded teams like Tether, etc., working on it. So, yeah, it was a fun one.
They've got a few quid, haven't they?
Just a bit, yeah. I think they've quite literally got the only money printer that exists that isn't controlled by a government.
Yeah, it was interesting, actually. I didn't know a lot of the stuff that he was bringing up, and he's obviously like deep into this stuff. But I have to say, like, especially me as a non-techie, like, I was like, this is all cool. This is all interesting stuff, and like maybe it happens at some point, and big respect to anyone who's working on it because it could be great. But I'm not personally going to be moving away from Proton for my storage and like all the other stuff that I'm doing. I'm probably not going to be moving my messenger from Signal, I don't think, at this point. So for me anyway, it's like, okay, let's check back in a couple of years, but maybe the more technical among us will want to start digging in and playing.
Yeah, I think it's fair to assume like it's still very early. I know we say that a lot tongue in cheek, but it is. Although like centralized services like Signal, etc., aren't perfect, you know, they are essentially centralized. The architecture is built in such a way that it's not that disastrous to use, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, your data can't be stolen unless somebody compromises one of your end devices and breaks the encryption and stuff. So not perfect, but I think where this stuff really starts to shine, it's a bit like that BitChat app where a lot of Bitcoiners are a fan of. Like, under normal operation, nobody needs to have to be tied to having a mesh network to be able to communicate with everybody, because centralized systems do a wonderful job of connecting people. It's when that shit starts to break down for one of the various reasons, like corrupt governments or internet blackouts and things like that, that yes, I'm glad we have it, but like while the going's good, centralization isn't always a bad thing.
I guess it's one of those things, though, that you need to dip your toe in and have some level of comfort with these things, or at least have it downloaded and like workable, because it's the same as like a food store. If I wake up in the morning and then it's like, oh, there's no food in any of the shops and there's this contamination and everything's closed and everything's being burnt and nothing's open, and you don't have anything in your store cupboard, it's like, when was a good time to do this? It was actually yesterday, not today, and now I'm fucked. So there are sort of, you can't ignore this stuff. It's just something you need to just like, I guess, have access to in an emergency, which is what it's for.
That's right. If you're curious, go and check out last week's Freedom Tech Friday. It's titled Talking Pears with Guy Swan.
Yeah, it was very good.
Thank you to Guy for coming on. I think he's going to cross-post that onto his feed as well, which should be good for getting some fresh eyes onto Freedom Tech Friday. In other news, update on the Samourai situation, I guess, for want of a better term. The petition is now up close to 14,500 signatures, which is, I think, another 3,000-ish from the last time we recorded, which was about 3 weeks ago, which, yes, any increase is good, but like...
Pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Once again, as always, links in the show notes if you want to go and sign a petition and support the cause here to try and get these guys a pardon.
It is rookie numbers and we need more, but considering how small this space is and considering how misunderstood this case is, like if you choose any case that could be misunderstood because of the technicalities of this stuff, people have no fucking idea about this kind of thing. So to get 15,000 people, like if you actually put 15,000 people in a stadium, it's a lot of fucking people. Although it's not enough, it is really good to see that some people in this community are standing up, because it's not people outside. I can assume that like it's people who actually like use Bitcoin and these kind of things. So it's in some ways better than I even expected, as sad as that is to say.
I know what you mean. Since we last recorded, Bill has now surrendered himself. I believe that was in the first week of January. So he's now also behind bars, beginning to serve out his sentence. I think he's got slightly less time than Keone did, not by a great deal.
Is it 4 years?
Yeah. And because both of them are now behind bars, they are also able to take cryptocurrency donations to support the families, where previously it was fiat only. I believe that was part of the stipulations of their kind of surrender process, and them not having to go behind bars straight away was that they couldn't interact in any way, shape or form with Bitcoin or crypto. Now that they're both behind bars, you can donate via Bitcoin, you can still donate via fiat, or there's loads of other cryptocurrency addresses posted on the link. Again, as always in the show notes, but it's billandkeone.org if you want to go and support the families. To push some people to do exactly that and donate, we set up a little competition with the help of one of the ungovernable listeners, an anonymous contributor, should we call them, on the last show when we recorded just before Christmas. And we basically said the person who donates the largest amount and uses the hashtag ungovernable, that person is going to win a free Passport Prime courtesy of this anonymous ungovernable listener. And obviously the Usset Foundation, we're going to coordinate that. Unfortunately, we only had one donation, but you know, we're true to our word. So the winner of that competition is Nostr Gang.
Oh, congratulations, Nostr Gang.
Yeah, thank you for your support. I know it was only a small gesture, but the idea of the competition was to get more people heading towards and reading about the case. So hopefully we've done that. Nostr Gang, I know you frequent most of the live streams and all of the podcasts. You're always in the booth and stuff, so we appreciate your support. You know where to find me. So once you get, or you see on socials that Prime has began shipping, get in touch with me, send me a DM, and we can coordinate getting a device over to you. And thank you for your support. And also thank you to the anonymous ungovernable listener who made all of that happen. You know who you are, and we appreciate you as well. Two final things on the Samourai situation, for want of a better term. Keone's wife, Lauren, did an interview with Jesse Tevelo, I think is how you pronounce it, which was, again, a difficult listen, but an interesting listen nonetheless to hear her perspective on the whole thing. Obviously, she's now one of the main voices, and she's been very prominent on Twitter, continuing to help fly the flag for this and making sure that it doesn't get memory hold. That is a very interesting listen if you want to go and get up to speed on things and hear Keone's wife talk about the situation and how Keone's been settling in to his incarceration. That will be linked in the show note. And the final one, and this was completely unbeknownst to me until they started being published, Keone has actually been writing letters or sharing letters about his time and the first couple of weeks behind bars with the guys at The Rage, and they've been publishing them as articles. Again, these are difficult reads, but very interesting nonetheless to find out how he's getting on. It seems as though he's settling in as well as can be expected. So the first one was just about his introduction, him settling in, getting to know his new bunkmates, etc. And then the second one was a very interesting read, actually, talking about how the currency of that prison system where he is basically ran on tins of mackerel, believe it or not.
Wow, okay.
It's ran on tins of mackerel, which you would think makes zero sense because, yes, they're tins, so they're probably going to have a slightly longer shelf life, but they still have a shelf life. It's a very interesting read. I won't give away any spoilers. It's quite a long read. It's a very thought-provoking one.
Tins of mackerel.
Yeah, amongst other things, I will be clear.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure.
But tins of mackerel are like the cream of the crop.
The gold standard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they are the gold standard within that specific prison where he is.
It's a perfect protein shake. If you're in prison, you don't have access to protein shakes, you just want to get jacked while you're in there. Pretty good. A little tin of that is high protein.
Yeah, indeed. Maybe that's the reason. But again, it's a very interesting read. And as a reminder, actually, of how talented a writer Keone is, obviously, we would have all read at some point the various Samourai posts, which go into great detail about Bitcoin privacy. But hearing him talk about, like, yes, it's a tangential topic, but hearing him talk about something different, it was a reminder for me as to how talented he was.
Yeah.
How talented he is. Excuse me. Once again, those will be linked in the show notes. Thank you to The Rage for publishing those. And that's everything for my AOB, mates. What about you? What's going on in your life? How's the Decaf diaries going? I'm about to take a victory lap for those that didn't listen to the brief. How's it going?
Listen, it's a small victory lap because the increase is only to 2 coffees a day, which I don't think is too bad. Like 2 double espressos and then like topped up with a little bit of extra water. That's how I drink it. And it's like, yeah, it's not what I said originally of 1, but it's a lot better than like 7 to 10 a day, I think. And I'm generally not drinking them past sort of like 2 o'clock in the afternoon latest. So it's not bad. The booze is gone. There's been no alcohol. And I'm really, 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 really trying to stick to that. Because I've done like 8 months before, no booze. I've done a couple of 6-month stints. I always sort of like slip back into it and then end up just like, it's like, I'll just have 1 drink. And then a week later, it's like half a bottle of wine a night. And it just very quickly escalates. So I'm just sticking to the crack, I think. It's just better. Cleaner.
Definitely better for your health, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But outside of that, catching up with a good friend of ours in about an hour when we finish recording to help me set up some of my new setup, because I just decided, do you know what, rather than me fuck everything up and no one has internet here, I'm just gonna call on a favor here and set up my new Flint 2 router, because I gave my other one away, new little mini PC where I'm going to run all my home assist and security cameras off it and new Bitcoin node when my other one exploded. Did I tell you my Starbuck fucking exploded?
I think you did. I don't know whether we discussed it on air though.
But that was running as a node and then like the whole thing swelled and the keyboard like popped out of the thing and I lost a few sats on Lightning. Luckily I didn't have too much on there. Just like that fucking thing has been useless. So anyway, so that's in the bin and now new little mini PC and going to have everything set up on there. So I'm looking forward to doing that and like fiddling around and seeing what outside of the lights and outside of the security cameras can I, because I've got an alarm system here, but it's like old school ADT or whatever it is with all the sensors and everything. It's like a separate system to what I'm setting up. I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to be able to set something up all within the same system. So like the cameras pick something up and they have sensors anyway. Can that then set off other alarms and things? I just want to see how far you can take this thing. That's what I'm looking forward to.
From my experience, there is bridges for almost everything. So I'd be very surprised if you can't bridge your existing system into all of the new stuff that you are about to plumb in.
Okay.
So wise idea, getting some help, because it's
a
little bit frustrating, and give my regards to our friend if it is who I think it is.
I think you know who it will be. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. And what was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh, that was it. While fucking around with like looking through all the documentation for Home Assist, I also saw that you have all this like Jellyfin and all these kind of like home entertainment things that you can have on your, I keep wanting to say Start 9, but I don't mean Start 9, I mean Umbral. Have you messed around with any of that? I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, I think I could like fuck off a load of subscriptions here, which I love. Like any time that I can go, there's this $15.99 for this, and you're paying that for that music thing, and you're paying that for this thing. Like if I could fuck some of that stuff off, I'd be really happy. But I don't want to do it and it just be shit.
No, it's not something that I have ever, a rabbit hole that I've gone down. The main thing putting me off, and there are probably people listening to this that do all of that sort of stuff that will laugh at what I'm about to say, and it's probably my own naivety, but the overhead of having to download and manage it all just puts me off. Where you've got to, go and seek out music libraries, and it would annoy me if I was going on there and there was no like album artwork and things like that. And I know that's a bit of a not important, if you know what I mean. But like when I'm in my music app, whatever app it is, I find it pleasing to have like the whole experience.
I know what you mean.
So yes, obviously you pay for that with your money, your data, your privacy, etc. So I'm sure it's nowhere near as hard as I envisage it to be. Yeah, it's just that the thought of having to do all of that manually just puts me off personally.
Yeah. Well, I've heard sort of mixed results. Self-Banked, I'm sure, was talking about it and saying that it was really easy and he runs it off a separate laptop and blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of other mates like tried it and they're like, fuck this shit, I'm not doing this. I think I'll probably be in the fuck this camp, but I'm going to give it a go. Outside of that, mate, no more news.
Good. Let's dive into 2026, shall we, and hit the news.
Let's do it.
Well, first on the list, keeping with the samurai theme that we have started at the top of the show with, Bitcoin Magazine, more specifically Frank Korver, published an article last week that suggests that the US Department of Justice have potentially violated Trump's executive order by selling all of the forfeited Samurai Wallet Bitcoin. So, quote, on the November 3rd, 2025, it seems that the US Marshal Service, at the direction of the Department of Justice, used Coinbase Prime to liquidate the Bitcoin that the Samurai developers forfeited as part of their plea deal, likely violating President Trump's mandate to keep such Bitcoin in the United States Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Which is interesting. If the Southern District of New York, SDNY, which is the one that the prosecution in the Samurai case did in fact violate the executive order 14233, apparently it would not be the first time employees of the SDNY have acted in defiance of direction from the federal government. I hear this levied, obviously we're not US law experts, but I hear this levied quite a lot by various people in our circles that the SDNY seem to kind of be a law unto themselves, and this would be, I guess,
just do what they want.
Yeah, whether they're trying to make a name for themselves to be like the prosecutors. I guess one of the beauties or the double-edged swords, I guess, of the Bitcoin network is that obviously from a privacy perspective, on-chain Bitcoin is not the best, but that also means that online sleuths can also track what happened to the Samurai Bitcoin afterwards, and it would appear that they sold it all.
Okay, we'll see what happens there.
And just to be clear, the executive order, for those that aren't aware of it, basically says that any Bitcoin that's forfeited as part of criminal cases, we're just going to keep it. And that is what's going to form part of our strategic Bitcoin reserve that everybody was so excited about last year and the year before, where it was like, oh, the US government's going to start buying Bitcoin, yada, yada, yada. Well, in fact, what it was we're just going to keep the stuff that we steal.
Yeah, they're going to steal it.
Well, yeah, we're going to keep the stuff that we steal. But even that turned out to not be true if this article is accurate, because it's like, we're going to steal it and then we're going to sell it.
I don't know what I prefer. I almost, would I prefer that they steal it and then sell it, or steal it and then keep it? Maybe steal it and then sell it, because at least then they don't have control over it and it might go into the hands of someone who isn't a thief.
The other view would be if they steal it and keep it, and they keep a sizable amount of it, they are, whether they like it or not, financially invested.
Yeah, they have the incentive.
Or financially incentivized to not nuke this thing to the ground.
Yeah, only if they have a lot and the price of Bitcoin goes up a lot, because the numbers that we're talking about to us are like, oh my God, that's so much money. But like to the US government, it's nothing.
And to be clear, according to the document, the defendants agreed to transfer $6,367,139 worth of Bitcoin, which at the time was 57.55 Bitcoin. So it's a lot to the average Joe like you and me, like a hell of a lot. But to the US government, like
it's nothing.
They lose that on childcare things in Philadelphia or wherever it was every second.
Yeah.
Did you see that news, by the way?
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable and believable. But it's the equivalent of like these sort of numbers are like me getting out my car and like 1p drops out of my pocket and like I'm just like, I can't be asked to pick that up. Is that?
Yeah, essentially is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, they haven't come out and admitted anything. This is just off the back of people doing some on-chain analytics, seeing that it's gone to a Coinbase Prime address, and that address is now empty. So indications are that it's been sold, but I guess until they come out and say one way or the other, this is just online sleuths guessing what's good. Yes, conjecture to suggest what's going on. I feel like this is a bit of a Groundhog Day section of the news. So we've got governments being corrupt, and then the second item is, we've got another ledger leak.
Yes, it really is Groundhog, because it goes governments being corrupt, then it goes companies being retarded and irresponsible, and then it goes back to governments being corrupt and retarded and irresponsible. That's the way that it goes every single time.
Indeed. Yes. So ZachXBT on Twitter leaked. It wasn't really a leak. It was he shared that Ledger have had another data breach. This time around, it was via their payment processor, Global E, who I've never heard of, has been hacked and leaked the personal data of customers, which includes, I'll quote the email that was sent to customers. Dear customer, Global E recently identified unusual activity on a portion of our network. Immediately after we became aware of the unusual activity in our cloud systems, we took action to contain and ultimately secure our systems. We retained independent forensic experts to conduct an investigation into the incident and were able to determine that some personal data, including name and contact information, were improperly accessed. And I think it also later transpires that, yes, this does include physical addresses.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, clearly not great at all. And it seems to be a tale as old as time. However, whilst, yes, this is not a good look for Ledger because they've got history in this field of...
They're consistent.
They are consistent. What I will say is, this, on the surface of it, doesn't actually seem to be directly within Ledger's control and their fault. The hack was on Global E, which is the payment provider that Ledger uses, presumably for the fiat side of their business. So if you go and buy a Ledger Nano whatever, and you give them your credit card details online, that will be then processed through this Global E, essentially. And it's them that have had the hack, not necessarily something to do with data under Ledger's control.
It's true.
So I want to be careful here to not jump down Ledger's throat, because like it would be rich for me to do that, knowing that I work at a competitor who has a similar sort of setup where if you buy a passport from our website, Stripe is the company that processes those fiat payments if you choose to use a credit card.
Yeah.
They, as a regulated banking service, are legally bound to keep all of their payment information for X amount of time. If they do a shit job of that, that's not our fault, but it would look bad on us, just like this looked bad on Ledger, because they've had, or their customers have been affected yet again.
Yeah.
So not a great look. What can you do to protect yourself? I guess use Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies when purchasing Bitcoin related products, specifically hardware wallets. If you're going to get it delivered, try not to use your home address for the obvious reason. Literally every single brief we talk about another attack that's happened where somebody's house has been broken into. So if you can just not share all of this information while still getting hold of this important security-based hardware to secure your Bitcoin or whatever else you use, then please do so. Pick up at physical locations if you've got one near you, pick up at conferences if it's available, pay in cash, pay in Bitcoin. If you must get it delivered, obviously what you have available to you will depend on A, the company that you're dealing with, and B, where you are in the world. I know you can have personal collection options like private pickup points. You can have it delivered to a work address. You can use a PO box. All of these have different trade-offs and costs associated with them. But please don't be blasé, because you can do absolutely nothing wrong and still be affected by this potentially years after you've actually made that transaction. Because as I say, especially when you're dealing with the fiat system, like these companies like this Global E that process ledgers fiat payments, they will have to keep their customers' information for at least a number of years to be compliant.
I think it's at least 7, isn't it? And then they'll probably keep it longer than that because they keep pushing it out. So effectively, or probably forever. There's going to be a leak within those 7 years, isn't there? Let's just be honest. So, it is forever.
Yeah, indeed.
As good as.
That's right. That's right. So whilst, again, this is not looking good for Ledger, I do feel for them somewhat, in the sense that there's probably not a lot other than not working with Global E that they could have done to prevent this, essentially, because if they would go out of business if they didn't accept fiat payments.
Yeah.
So, okay, next on the list, Wallet of Satoshi is winding down custodial services in the EU. Users of the Lightning Wallet application Wallet of Satoshi are reporting to be unable to access the application's custodial wallet and are instead being prompted to use the application's non-custodial wallet. Quote, no longer available in your region is the error message that's being shown to users based in the EU. Another quote, you can keep using Wallet of Satoshi in self-custody mode. So this is actually a positive bit of news, in my personal opinion, depending on which way you look at it. So allow me to spell that out. Yeah. I mean, the reason that this is happening is because Wallet of Satoshi are scared of what the bureaucrats in the EU will do to them with various different regulations, because as a custodian, you are literally painting a crosshairs on your back for all of these regulations, money transmitter, business, and all that usual bollocks that we've spoken about many, many times. So the fact that they are being forced to withdraw some of their services is not great. However, if it pushes one more person into self-custody, then I think, you can look at the positive side of this as well. But this seems to be affecting people quite widespread: Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Poland, and the Netherlands. I would imagine it's probably going to be all the way across the EU.
Didn't we have a load of issues with the self-custody privacy within Wallet of Satoshi? We talked about this a few months ago. So that's why I was going to say ish, because it's like it's a win, like you say, in terms of pushing people to self-custody, but then also like that self-custody, I don't know if it still has issues, but it certainly did. So that's not a win.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Wallet of Satoshi is using Spark for their self-custody side of the wallet. And as we discussed on previous briefs, if nothing has changed, if you know somebody's Wallet of Satoshi address, you can look up their Spark address and see all of their transaction history, which is not great, obviously. And I think there's been many people lobbying them to fix that, because it seems like a pretty easy fix to make. I think it just depends on the back end that's powering the kind of Spark network that you're running on. K-Quality is a prime example of that. They've achieved all of this, albeit not publicly yet, without having to have this significant privacy trade-off. So I'd imagine they will fix it over time, but it's still not perfect. Okay, back to governments being corrupt. California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a bill allowing the state to transfer custody of any Bitcoin or cryptocurrency held on exchanges after 3 years of inactivity. Under the law, inactive accounts on centralized exchanges are classified as unclaimed property.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, indeed. Like 3 years, that's not a long amount of time, really, is it?
No. 3 years is like a mental breakdown and recovery, or like having kids, and which is the same as a mental breakdown and recovery, and then coming back and going, oh, I'll just log in, I need a bit of my savings here, and it's gone.
Yeah, it's completely wild. And I guess I have to say the line here, like, this is not possible if you self-custody your Bitcoin. So once again, the millionth reminder, don't leave your Bitcoin on exchanges.
Would you recommend that then?
What, self-custody in Bitcoin?
Yeah, because you haven't mentioned it before.
Yeah, exactly. If you did need another push, Gavin Newsom has just given you one. Obviously, if you are residing in the People's Republic of California.
All right, Gav.
More corrupt governments. We have apparently French government officials, or at least one that's been outed.
That ain't no woman.
It's a man.
So far, has been selling taxpayers' information to criminals so that they can go and break into the house and steal their Bitcoin.
Top tier stuff.
So basically what's happening here, it's a tax agent who obviously works on behalf of the government, probably gets paid sweet FA, but has access to French citizens' tax information, will be able to obviously see if they've paid capital gains tax or declared any cryptocurrency, etc. This individual has been caught basically giving that information to crime gangs who it's obvious what they want to do with that information to go and give you a knock on the door with a sizable wrench in their hand to say, give me all of your Bitcoin. She is going, that whoever this individual is, they have been caught and they're going through the court system, obviously, which is good to see at least. But again, it's another reminder that these centralized pots of data tying you to your Bitcoin are quite literally a threat to your life. If they fall into the wrong hands, like a corrupt government official who's earning a little over minimum wage probably and has a very unsatisfying job and has the opportunity to make a little bit on the side, irrespective of how immoral that is, then clearly, as we've seen, some people will take that opportunity. And unfortunately, the end result for you as a kind of cryptocurrency holder, if you're the one whose information is being shared, is potentially be fatal. And I know that that sounds very extremist and it sounds very, very hyperbolic, but you know, these attacks are literally happening week in, week out at the moment, and France seems to be a bit of a hotbed for it.
Yeah, it isn't hyperbolic because we see it. I don't think we ever have a brief where we don't mention it anymore, and it's ramped up considerably since we've first started getting involved with this stuff. Like, it was a bit more of a rarity. You know, I almost see it as, with everything that we've just discussed, if you give your information to any company or government, they will either be corrupt or incompetent or both. And your data will go into the wrong hands. It might not be today or tomorrow or next week, but next year or within the next decade, it will happen. You know, moving house isn't the most simple thing. Changing a name certainly isn't the most simple thing. This stuff is fucking scary. And as the people are right about Bitcoin and why it's so important and that the world's going to shit, then logically it follows that you are going to become a bigger and bigger target. If the value of Bitcoin goes up, and the quality of the world around you goes down, it's fucking scary. So stop doing it. It's terrifying. And the other thing I was going to mention, the other day, I was speaking to a police officer who handles dogs, like trains and handles dogs. They were saying to me that these dogs, well, some people might already know this, but it was new to me, can sniff out even a micro SIM card, micro SD, that's hidden anywhere within a property. So that made me think, like, obviously you've got the corrupt governments and you've got the gangs and everyone else who will get your data. In terms of storage, if you get a knock on the door by either gang, whether it's the police or whether it's, you know, someone turning up with a wrench, how simple would it be for them to find backup devices, find micro SDs that are hidden somewhere clever? The use of dogs is not the hardest thing in the world. It did make me think, like, are we back to a place where stamping into steel or having something written down or some other clever method, in those situations, is that better than storage on devices because they can be sniffed out? It was just a thought, that because we talked about a lot about micro SDs, and I came round to the idea of actually, in a lot of ways, like, an encrypted micro SD is better. And even if they get hold of it, it is encrypted. But if they get hold of it and either of those gangs has a gun to your head, you're probably going to give them what they want.
There's loads of different angles of attack here that you just mentioned, like protection from police dogs or dogs that can sniff out SD cards, or somebody holding to a gun to your head, are two very different kind of types of attack, and you can't protect yourself from all of them with one type of thing. You mentioned, like, or suggested maybe, is it just better to keep it simple and just keep stamp shit into steel? I would say there's a time and a place for everything, but like, if you go back to that method alone, then generally speaking, you stamp into plain text. So then you're back into a world where you don't even need a dog. Like, if it's in plain text and the human finds it, job done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you can stamp or engrave into places that would be, without tearing a whole home apart or place apart, would be practically impossible to find. Like, you can get pretty creative in the physical world, and if it's etched or if it's stamped or whatever, you can't smell that. And so it would literally mean brick by brick, pipe by pipe, wire by wire, taking fucking everything out of an entire building to find it. Whereas, micro SD or SIM, it's dog in 5 minutes, found.
Yeah, for me, it's the combination is where this becomes powerful. You've got the steel, which is robust and protects against all of the stuff that you just mentioned and can be well hidden and not sniffed out per se. Where the encrypted SD card shines is offsite security, where you are not. Because you've got that encryption, for me, that's where it shines, is you give it to a friend or you give it to a family member. All they're doing is hold an SD card. It's not your personal location. So the chances of you being at that third-party location and getting a police raid with a sniffer dog or whatever, it's never going to happen, is it? It's that offsite redundancy is where the SD card shines, or obviously the whole travel piece that we've talked about as well, of going through borders.
True. Yeah, it's just something to think about. Like, I think more and more about security with all of these attacks, with attacks from government and attacks from gangs. It's obviously scary and people need to protect themselves against it because they're kind of not that separate. Either of them can knock at your door for any fucking reason. And like we've just seen with the Samourai case, it's like you can be completely innocent, have actually been doing a good for the world and helping people protect their privacy and helping people protect against these type of gangs. And then another gang comes and raids your fucking house at whatever, 3 o'clock in the morning and puts you in a cage and steals your Bitcoin. So either one, even if you're a good person and not doing anything wrong and just going about your business, either one can turn on you at any time. So it's just something that's constantly on my mind at the moment.
Yeah, it's something that we should never stop thinking about. And it's always a moving target. You've always either got more and more Bitcoin, so you need to reassess your security. You've got different access to different locations. You might move house, your family moves away. It might not be easy for you to go to certain places. It's not a one and done type thing. You've got new technologies coming out. You've got MiniScript, you've got different hardware wallets, you've got multi-sig and different software wallets. It's something that you just have to evolve over time. And most people, if we're honest with ourselves, we do that one thing and we're like, we feel warm and we feel cozy and we're like, I just don't want to touch it now. But that's a dangerous trap to fall into.
Yes.
Right. Let's hit on the boosts. I will kick us off with Dr. Zhivago.
Yeah.
Actually comes in with the top support for the last show via XMR, and they sent 0.01154.255 XMR. Said, anybody listening who didn't support the Samurai Boys can get fucked. Most important development for Bitcoin since its inception. While you eat your own talking about
You've
spam,
got to say it.
save
You've
the
got to
children.
hey. You've got to read it.
While you eat your own cum talking about spam, save the children, be a slave, same fucking shit every time, privacy first.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you for your support, Dr. Zhivago. In fact, the whole spam argument seems to have died off. Would you agree? Is your feed much less populated with that?
It definitely was. The only thing I saw that, like, one of the days over Christmas, I saw people saying about, they had like all the pictures of a few like influencery type people, and then like, these are the core scum something, and then like V30's broken and something, and I didn't even bother reading it. I was just like, okay, but it kept popping up. It was like, yeah, you see, they fucking sold you out. And there was like Stefan Livera on there and a few others, and I was like, what the fuck are these guys done? But apparently they've done something, and apparently V30's like fucked.
There was a bug in there. I probably should have put this on the list. I completely forgot, but I'll do it off the top of my head because I don't have any links to read off. But apparently there was a bug, a very niche bug, where basically if you tried to recover a very old wallet using like a legacy style wallet into V30, basically it wouldn't work and you'd basically get a zero balance. I think again, I'm doing this off the top of my head from listening to other podcasts, so I can't remember all of the details, which is obviously not a great situation. So what they've done is basically just pulled that download link and they've already released a fix, I believe. Again, this is a very, very niche one. Like if you just use, I mean, let's be honest, nobody uses Bitcoin Core as a wallet anyway. If you do, you're a sucker for punishment. Like it's terrible. Why would you when there's so many other great options? But if you were and you're trying to recover a very old legacy wallet, you were going to have issues, and that's why they pulled the download and released the fix.
It's if you're using the wallet within core that it would be a problem. But if you were connected
Correct.
to that node
Correct.
and using whatever, any other wallet.
No issue whatsoever.
Oh, that is very niche then. Okay.
Yeah.
That's even more niche than I
it-
expected it to
but-
be. That's
The chatter between the knots and the core camp has got,
silly.
you know, it's digressed
Yeah.
that far that like any opportunity to take a victory lap, like
Yeah.
the opposition are going to
Yeah.
take it. So, which is what you saw.
Okay. All right. I'm glad I didn't bother reading it then.
Yeah, he's would have been a waste of time.
Rod Palmer from Bugle News, 40 hours per week, sent 21,000 sats and says guns and glazing. I think they're very into their glazing at the moment, apparently.
Yeah, I think we piqued their interest with the title of the last show, didn't
Glazing.
we?
And then one of John's daughters was explaining in the Meshtadel what glazing is. Do you know what glazing is?
Oh, is this like a
This-
Gen Z thing that we don't know? The old...
So
Go
like
on.
Bugle Boys are really into it, and we didn't, like me and John, obviously too fucking old to understand. And then so she went on and was basically saying like glazing is like hyping someone up about how great they are. You're like glazing them, like almost like sucking up, I think it is. I might have got that slightly wrong, but like,
Right,
oh
okay.
yeah, they're amazing. Like if like, oh, Q&A, yeah, he's amazing. Like, if it comes to self-custody, he's just unreal. And the carves are just like 10 out of 10. I'd be like glazing you.
I'm just typing on. I've just typed that into Urban Dictionary,
I can
right?
imagine what's come up.
Okay, so there's three here, and I'm going to read
Okay.
all three to be fair. Glazing, mostly used by New Yorkers. Glazing means a person is dick riding another
There you are.
person. Yeah, so I think that's what
Yeah.
you were saying. Number two, glazing, when someone really likes another person.
Okay.
It's kind of
Yeah.
the same thing, right? Number three, if you have children listening, then please
I know what
turn the
this is
volume
going
down.
to be. It'd be like a Krispy Kreme
Go on,
face.
see if you can. It's exactly that. Yeah, I'm glad you summarized that for me, so I didn't have to read it out
Yeah.
verbatim.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay. Well, happy glazing, guys. And thanks for the 21,000 sats.
Indeed, yeah. I appreciate you, Rob Palmer. Keep up
Yeah.
the good work. On the 40 hours per week meme, and I know it's just
Yeah.
a meme. What's your average podcast intake, would you say? Other podcasts these days? I bet you yours is trending towards zero.
Genuinely, my average used to be like 8 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours a day for
Wow.
like years.
All Bitcoin stuff.
Mainly, and then a little
Fuck.
bit of like, or I put audiobooks in there as well. So like things about
Yeah.
like anarchy and like different stuff loosely, closely related. And then like a sprinkling of UFO / like that kind of stuff that I'm interested in, like slightly weirder stuff. But yeah, probably 8 to 10 hours a day, like 6 days a week for 6 years or something. And now since beginning of March, I've listened to 2 podcasts now. So like zero hours per week. What about you? Where are you?
It's trending towards zero. It's tough because my interest is dropping in terms of listening to the same talking heads. I like to stay up to date with the technical stuff. So I do kind of skip through RHR just to get like software updates, or if there's anything in the show notes that kind of piques my interest that I want to hear about, I will skip through that on a weekly basis. Other than that, like it's mainly other stuff now. Like my Bitcoin stuff is just trending down towards zero, which is sad, really. We've both been in the space for, you more than me, but like well over 5 years now. There's just less and less new stuff coming around. Like if Lavera has somebody on that's like, talking about the latest ARC wallet or something like that, then I'll listen to that. But they're kind of few and far between these days. Generally speaking, now mine's like other stuff,
Glazing.
like one of my main passions. Yeah, I love a glazing podcast.
Go on. What's your main passion?
Especially when it's a video
Oh,
podcast.
God.
One of my main passions outside of work and stuff is cars. So I listen to a lot of car podcasts.
You are a
and stuff like
proper
that. So
petrol head.
I am a big petrol head.
I used to be.
Yeah, so it's mainly car stuff. I follow a couple of different race series and things like that. So there'll be a couple of podcasts that follow that. Maybe some biking stuff
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, very little Bitcoin content these days, which I guess is just a sign of the times of me becoming a greybeard comparative to the average Bitcoiner. And I guess just, there's only so many times you can hear the same old stuff over and over again. That's why I try and keep it varied.
repackaged stuff.
Indeed.
And there's only so much that affects you to a certain degree. There came a point where I was like, investment wise on Bitcoin, my thoughts are not changing. whatever is happening outside of like in macro land and all this sort of stuff that people talk about, like, oh, the Fed's doing this, and are they hawkish or are they this? Like, I used to really care about that, and then I realized nobody knows what they're talking about, and it will go up and down and sideways however it wants, and I'm not changing my view on things, so that's pointless. It's just like either patting yourself on the back and saying how clever am I, or worrying yourself, and it's just pointless. And then in terms of setup, because unless you're like a proper super nerd and you like to like test everything and all the different wallets, and like you're building this stuff and learning about it, you kind of, it's like Sparrow, fucking great wallet. Use that on a desktop, and it's like hardware, you know, for me is foundation. Like, okay, that's not changing. And then like you've got a couple of other wallets that you use, probably doesn't change. Like you've set up your node, it probably doesn't change. You've got all this fucking core hating, bashing bullshit. Like, do you need to pay attention to that? Definitely not. Yeah, like there's just a point where I think where you spend the most time, or where I did, was like on the investment side, like really caring. And that's why I listened to so much of it. Like, am I right? Am I right? It like, am I a fucking idiot?
Yeah.
Because everyone is telling me that I'm a fucking idiot. Like, and they're actually quite smart people. So am I a fucking idiot? And that was years and years of like, am I? And then the other thing is like, how do I do this without fucking losing all of this? Because I think it is valuable. That was like loads of that. And then once that's done, it's like, okay, I don't know, do something else, worry about something else. Like all the conversations that I have with John in terms of like health and family and community stuff is much more interesting. And it is still tied, but it's just, maybe we're just getting old, mate.
And to be clear, I'm not shitting on like the kind of tradfi side of Bitcoin, because I used to lap that shit up as well. And like you say, in your early days is a lot of looking for confirmation bias. And if it wasn't for like those bullish podcasts in my early days, I wouldn't have half the amount of sats that I do now. So there's definitely a time and a place, and I'm thankful that that sort of shit exists. But like, there's only so much of it you can take,
and you
right?
do need to go through it at the beginning, because even now, like even fucking nearly a decade on, if you go and speak to like smart people, they'll all tell you like, that's a very bad investment. That's very stupid. Here's why. And they give you some fucking absolute nonsense that like once you realize, once you've gone through that process, you're like, you have no idea what you're talking about. But you have to go through that, because otherwise you can be like, oh, you know, I'll chuck 50 quid on. It's like a bet, you know, like you're not going to have the confidence to be like, I'll sell my house and fucking invest it in this and sit for 10 years. Like no one's doing that.
Yeah.
So there we are.
All right. Well,
yes.
Wow, we digress there. Next on the list, the boost list, late stage hodl, 6,006 sats. Merry Christmas and a happy new year to you, fine gentlemen. May 2026 be the year where I can buy you both a beer in person. I would love that.
I would love that as well. I won't be having the beer. I'll have a water and a cuddle or something like that, if that's okay with you.
I'll take two.
Yeah, you can have mine. Welderin sends 2,222 sats and says, boys, try 2 warmed mince pies with custard. No, thank you, mate. I don't glaze my mince pies.
Yeah, custard's overrated for me.
Oh.
2 mince pies I can get on board with. Like, I'll happily do that 3 times over. But yeah, custard's overrated for me.
They do like quite a nice vanilla custard, which isn't the worst thing. But I just think if you're having anything that's similar to like custard or cream, you would just have ice cream, unless you're a fucking retard. You would have 2 mince pies, and then you go get high quality ice cream, like a Haagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream, like ball out, and just have some of that on top of the warmed mince pies. Some of it's going to melt anyway, so you get that sort of cream situation that you're looking for. It's better than a custard in every single way imaginable, and I just don't think you need to sell yourself short. I think you're better than custard.
Yeah, I've met you, Ian, and you are better than custard.
You are better than custard, mate. Believe in yourself.
Arrow sent 1,000 sats and said, another great episode to close out the year. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. User 2229066 sent 500 sats with no message.
Then we've got some streamers. We've got Pleb2 Polymath sent streamed 580 sats. The same user that Max had just mentioned, who's boosted 500 sats. So I think we've just got a double entry there. So You're welcome, user 2229066.
Yeah.
Shadowy Super Badger streamed 450 sats. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Shadrach sent 323 sats, said thank you guys, and a cigarette. Eric PP boosted 300 sats. VMVD boosted. That sounds like a venereal disease.
It really does.
VMVD VD boosted 230 sats. Thank you very much. Pies.
Hey, chingity ching.
121 sats. Salute, egg, steak, mushroom, and strong arm. Nostr Gang 111. Ungovernable. And POW Please sent 100 sats. Oh, and POW Please from I think that's a double entry as well. Boosted 100 sats. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone, for your support. Yeah, some nice boosts there. We have nothing in the question bin this week and nothing in the education bin. So let's round out the show with the updates and releases. First on the list, this one is very, very cool. Somebody that goes by Miguel Medeiros, hope I said your name correctly, has released a tool called the Phoenix D Dashboard. So I've just legged it back up the stairs after our little break and I'm a little bit out of breath.
Fucking hell.
Christmas is taking its toll.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Christmas is taking its toll on me.
I just walks up the stairs and I'm fucked.
What was I? Phoenix D, yes. So Phoenix D, for those that are unfamiliar, is essentially a Phoenix wallet backend that you can run on your own node that does all of the management for you, takes all the channel management, etc., headaches away from you, and it's just like an app that you run on your Umbrella or similar. But up until now, it's either not had a UI or it's had a very rudimentary UI. I think it might have just been command line only. Correct me if I'm wrong there, listeners. But Miguel has made a very, very beautiful web or self-hosted dashboard for this, basically. And this thing, if you click the link, Max, I want to get your thoughts on this.
Let me go on.
Click the link, right? This literally looks like it's been built by the Umbrella team. It's beautiful.
Where do I go? It's taken me to GitHub, which is the most ugly.
Scroll down. Scroll down.
Phoenix D presentation
embedded video.
Yeah, all right, got it.
There you go. Click that. It's only 21 seconds.
Let me have a look.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is actually very nice. Yeah, that's very clean.
So listeners, just click on the link in the show notes and go and check it out. It's awesome. Like, it looks so good. It literally, like I say, it looks like if any of you run an Umbrella, it looks like it was built by the exact same team. It's that good looking.
So talk me through, why would someone use this? This goes, you run this on your node or on your computer.
So Phoenix D, you would run that first and foremost if you want to interact with Lightning in I guess I want to be careful to say
way that works.
In a way that works, yes, with minimal headaches where you don't have to worry about inbound liquidity, you don't have to worry about channel management, because you get all of the wonderful bells and whistles that Phoenix Wallet Mobile offers you, in that it just works and you have to pay a fee for it. But you can now do that on your own node using the Phoenix daemon, essentially. But that has been great for power users that have, are good at running servers or, are comfortable with running an Umbrella, but it didn't have a UI around it, or it had a rudimentary one. Well, now you can have the best of both worlds where, you might be a merchant, but you want to accept Lightning, that you don't want all the fucking headaches, but you know enough that you can switch on an Umbrella, basically.
Yeah.
And that's as far as you want to go. Install Phoenix D. I'm guessing that this user interface is going to be coming to Umbrella, etc. very soon, because it looks beautiful and it would be a perfect companion. But right now it's a native app that you can install on your Mac OS or Linux machine. And basically it would just connect locally to your Umbrella that's running Phoenix D or Start9 or whatever you've got. Gives you all the stats. You can see all of it. You can send, you can receive, you can do all of the usual stuff that you'll be able to do within the Phoenix wallet, but just interact with it on your own node in a beautiful manner, because it looks great. You can export all of your transaction history for all the taxes and all shit like that. It does Bolt 12. Basically, if you've used Phoenix, just imagine that, but on your desktop, essentially.
Okay. Very nice. I have to say, I'm a fan of Phoenix. After all the years of fucking around, it just works.
It is one of the best Bitcoin products out there.
Yeah.
And it's literally just an app. Well, calling it just an app is doing it a disservice, but like,
I know what you mean.
It's one of my favorite and most used Bitcoin products in my entire time in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's excellent. And I say that as somebody who also has Zeus and uses their own channels and all that sort of stuff. Like, I still use Phoenix a lot.
Yeah, I've used both and agree. Like, it just works. It's one of the best things out there. If you want to use Lightning and you don't want the fucking headaches, it's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, indeed. Next on the list, Rumble have finally released publicly their Rumble wallet for their what they call the creator economy. So this is basically just a self-custodial mobile wallet that you can tie to your Rumble account if you're a creator and you publish videos or podcasts or anything like that. Yeah, so the idea here is to promote viewers and listeners supporting content creators directly in a self-custodial manner, which I'm all for. The wallet itself bears all of the hallmarks of the Tether ecosystem. You can see their design influence here. It supports Bitcoin on-chain. It supports Tether for stable coins, and it also supports XAUT, which I believe is a gold-tied stable coin that runs on Ethereum. So those are the three currencies that you can opt to receive into your what they call tip jars, where basically, I could go on the Ungovernable Rumble page, see an excellent podcast called Freedom Tech Friday or the Bitcoin Brief and think, you know what? They deserve one of my tethers, and I can just send it straight to the non-custodial tip jar. You can swap as the end user with the Rumble wallet. You can swap between any of the currencies I've just mentioned. You can even buy those currencies within the app. I don't know what backend it's supported, but I'm going to guess it's going to be KYC. And you can also cash out from your tip jars as well if you want to turn those into, I guess, dollars in your bank account or pounds in your bank account, etc.
Very good. Let's see how that goes. It's pretty big.
Yeah, from a creator perspective, it seems to be a good one, and let's hope again it can take some chunks out of the YouTube hegemony.
We need to get Rumble working for Freedom Tech Friday, don't we?
I've no idea why it's still not working.
No.
I guess now we're financially incentivized to get it working.
That's right, exactly.
All right, next on the list, BTCPay Server 2.3.2 has been released, and it fixes an important regression from 2.3.1, affecting support for payment methods other than BTC and Lightning, and it also has several other bug fixes. So nothing groundbreaking, but if you are running it and your store depends on it, it might be worth updating because there's a number of bug fixes in there. Zeus 0.12.2 Alpha 1, they have added support for legacy South African retail QR codes called Money Badger.
Oh, thank God.
I vaguely remember Craig Raw talking about this. Obviously, he's from there. Yeah, it's interesting that Zeus has added support for it. I'm not sure how that kind of integration works.
Maybe it's a big thing out there.
According to what Craig said on, I can't remember what podcast it was. I think it might have been Lavera, maybe. But he said, yeah, like the QR code standard is like everywhere over there. And a lot of them, that QR code bakes in Bitcoin as well. It seems to be a bit of a hotbed for, I guess, adoption. So cool to see Zeus adding support for that.
Yeah.
Add Nostr Wallet Connection Activity View to show your payment history. So you can go and see all your Nostr apps in Zeus. Nice. An enhancement, pub key display UX in message verification. No idea what that is. But yeah, that is an alpha build, so tread carefully. Next on the list, this was shoved under my nose this morning via Nostr when I asked for if anybody had anything else to talk about. And it's a project I've never heard of until this very morning, but it's called JoinMarketNG. You ever heard of this one, Matt?
Is this like a join market on Nostr thing?
No.
No, okay.
So it turns out, there's a couple of like tangential projects within JoinMarket. So you've got JoinMarket itself, which is kind of the decentralized CoinJoin protocol, which has been around for years and years and years. That is like the reference implementation, which is like written in Python. You've got Jam, which people will be familiar with because you can run that on your Umbrella or your Start9, and that is like the web user interface for interacting with the JoinMarket protocol. Now, JoinMarket NG, of which they've just released version 0.9, full details will be linked in the show notes, is basically an alternative implementation that has, quote, protocol extensions. I don't know what protocol extensions mean, but it seems to be another way for you to be able to interact with the JoinMarket ecosystem, essentially. It will be linked in the show notes, and their 0.9 release seems to be very fully fledged, and it literally was released 4 hours ago, so it is hot off the press.
Okay.
I've never tested it. I have no way to be able to kind of recommend it, but it's nice to see we've got another alternative to be able to interact with the JoinMarket ecosystem, which it seems at the moment might be getting more important as time goes on.
It might be. I just still prefer Whirlpool, even in current state, because
from a user perspective and from a quality of mix perspective, I wholeheartedly agree, but it's not without its trade-offs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What was the one? I used something with OpenOms years ago, which was like made JoinMarket a bit easier, and I feel like you could run it on, what was it? Is it Jam?
Yeah, that's Jam. Yeah, that's like the most polished front end for it.
Yeah.
I've used that before now, and that's definitely the easiest way to interact with JoinMarket.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can run that yourself as a front end on Start9 or Umbrella or MyNode, etc.
Yeah.
All right, last on the list, just a bit of Nostr news. The Primal remote signer has now been released. So with Primal version 2.6, it now includes a NIP46 compliant remote signer built in natively into the iOS and Android apps. Basically, what this enables you to do is use Primal mobile app to log into any other Nostr app. So it turns Primal into potentially the sole custodian of your Nostr private key, your NSEC, and you can use that then to sign in to all of the other desktop or mobile-based Nostr app on your phone as well. So it's kind of like there's been alternatives for this for quite some time, like a Albi extension, which is obviously desktop only, or there's an app on Android only called Amber, which kind of holds your private key and operates in the same way where you give your private key to one app and then sign in using that app to the rest of them. Well, Primal can now support this, which I mention this because it's, you know, arguably one of the most popular Nostr apps going. So good from a security perspective because you can kind of limit your risk and not have to kind of splash your NSEC around or be forced to deal with desktop extensions like Albi.
Very good. Is that all the news and updates?
That's all the news. That's the entire list, mate. And so,
Okay.
unless you have anything else for me, we can wrap up and get on with our day.
Yeah. Our friend who's going to be helping me do my setup asked if they want to say anything to you. And they said they have nothing witty, just hello. And I'm about to call them.
Cool. Well, hello, wherever you are.
All right, mate. Well, yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And I will speak to you soon.
Peace.
Before you go, MYNYMBOX.io help keep your online presence hidden. They provide anonymous server hosting solutions, virtual, private, and dedicated servers, domain registration, and DNS parking. They don't require any of your personal information, and you can purchase using Bitcoin, Lightning, or Monero. No personal information required. None. Zero. MYNYMBOX.io. Stay ungovernable.